Okay, so welcome to part 3 of Andy's evaluation.
I'm the guinea pig, aren't I?
Absolutely, he's having fun, I think.
You're doing pretty good, though.
You're doing okay. So we've seen how the screen has affected the golf swing. Now we need to work out, well, how can we correct his dodgy hips?
Sure.
Sort those out?
So I mean, obviously, whenever you're going to do corrections, there's a couple basic things you can do. You can try these at home with us while you're watching as well. I mean, one of the easy ones to try to improve your hip rotation is to do more hip rotation, is to actually see if you can get the motion going. And there's an easy one for that. The other thing that always helps with things like the hips is manual therapy. So to go to someone like a physio and have them actually get in there and free up those hips, that can be a huge saving grace for you. And a lot of us spend a lot of time, as you know, sitting.
Yeah.
You might sit at work all day. You sit in the car at the way home. You spend a lot of your life these days, especially working life, in a sitting position. What that does is it turns off the glute and it actually shortens these hip flexors, which are important for getting us to rotate and turn. So just something as simple as getting up every 15, 20 minutes, taking a walk around the office or walking the stairs, those are all good things to get those hips more mobile.
You can be in that position for up to 20 hours a day, can't you?
You can. And that could really hurt your golf swing. People don't realize, then you go out on the weekend and play and don't understand why things aren't moving, you feel tight. You know, this shortened hip flexor position can cause low back pain. There's a lot of things. So that's just getting up is one of the first things I'd have you do. The next one we're going to do is we're just going to utilize a club here, and we're going to do something called stork turns. And what I'm going to have you do is just hold the club out in front of you like so. These are called supported stork turns. You're going to stand on your lead leg because that was the lead hip we were working on, and we're just going to have you just do some rotations. Now this is a good one just to get you feeling turning into that hip. So let me have you try that a few times, see if we can get you doing that.
Okay, so from here, just rotating into this.
So so you can already see his rotation is way better when we stabilize him. So what that does is it activates his core by holding onto this, gives a little bit of pressure, and then eventually to make this harder, I would take one hand off, and I'd have him just do it one-handed, and eventually I might even take both hands off and just have him work it where he's doing it with no support at all.
So
again,
that holding on the club there is what engages the core, isn't it?
Engages the core, yeah. So engages the core, which stabilizes you, which actually can free up the hips to move. So that's a good one you can try. I would do it on both sides, and that's a great warm-up to do before you actually go and hit golf balls anyway, but that will help the hip. So the other one we got to do is get you on the ground. So when we get you on the ground, I'm actually going to fire your glutes a little bit. And here's a little test that you can all try at home if you want to lie down, especially for those of you that might have tried this in the past and had a little bit of a cramping issue. So basically what we're going to do here is I'm going to have you put your legs flat. So just take your legs down. And now what I want you to do is I just want to put your hands underneath your butt, okay? And I want you to actually feel your glutes. You can grab hold of them. Now what I want you to want to do is I want you to activate the right glute and then the left glute. And see if you can turn one on. So squeeze your glute and then let it go. Squeeze your glute and then let it go. And try and activate them one at a time. And you can see him kind of raising up. Can you feel that? Can you activate them?
Yeah, both, yeah.
So a lot of you might find that you can only activate one. Some of you will find that you can't even move them at all. And you'll have this kind of pained look in your face, and we call that deer in the headlights because it's kind of like, I can't do this. Well, what we're trying to do here, I'm trying to get Andy to activate the glute. Fire the glute individually to make sure he can turn it on. And then what I'd have him do is take his hands away and try and do it without the hands, where you fire one glute, then the other. Fire one glute, then the other. And then I'll actually have him come up to a standing position, so come back up. So he's doing that pretty well right now, firing the glutes. Now in your setup posture, take your setup posture for free, and I want you to try and feel like you can do the same thing. Can you actually fire the glute? Can you activate the glute a little bit? Can you actually feel it? It's a little harder when you go up into a standing position and there's no weight on it.
It's a lot harder, yeah.
Yeah, so eventually I would work to get him to do that where he can feel engaging the glute muscle. Now the reason the glute is so important is it really is the king muscle in the golf swing. Not only is it the biggest muscle group, but if I'm firing my glutes, it takes the pressure off my hamstrings, takes the pressure off my hip flexors, helps me activate my core, and enables me to get that rotation that we really want out of your golf swing.
One of the things that I was feeling then, Dave, as well, is that as I'm trying to fire the glutes, the hamstrings are moving. So I can feel the hamstrings wanting to go, and I'm sort of trying to work out how I can can fire those glutes.
So it's a little premature right now. You're not quite ready to take it to that next stage. But for those of you at home, you can do it in a sitting position, just sitting in a chair. Can you lift one butt muscle, the other butt muscle, fire the glutes? Can you do them both at once? Activating those glutes is so important. And an easy way to do that is get up and down out of a chair. You know, you need your glutes. And these are the things we need in life. So as we get older, again, we're in that sitting position all day long. This is shortened. Our glutes turn off. Our hamstrings get tight. There's so many players, you know, even great athletes that I go, do you have tight hamstrings? And they go, yeah, I have tight hamstrings. And I go, do you stretch them? And they go, every day. Well, I'm like, if you stretch them every day, why are they still tight? They're still tight because they're under load. In other words, they're working way harder than they should be. What we should have is the glute mechanism firing. If the glutes are firing, the hamstrings can let go. And that's really, really what we want, right?
Super.
Okay, so the only other one I have that I'd like you to do is what we call a figure 4 stretch. And this is a stretch that you can do at home. Again, it requires you to get down on the floor. I'll kind of demonstrate it at first, and then you can follow along after me. So all I'm going to have you do is sit down on the ground, and you're going to take this front leg and put it in this position, and you're going to take this back leg and put it in this position. We call this a figure 4 stretch. It's kind of a yoga type pose. I want you to sit up tall like so, and what you're going to do is you're just going to gently push forward, and you're going to feel a massive stretch along this side, and especially along this hip flexor side as well. So this is a good one. We call this the figure 4 stretch to start, and we do that both sides, and you just turn your legs this way to do the other side. And then the other one we do for the hip is we do this one where we step the leg out in front of us. I want you to lean forward and then tuck your pelvis underneath. You'll feel a massive stretch down the front of this hip flexor, and again, that's an important opening mechanism to help you with the hips.
You can even do that supported maybe as well to again turn that core on.
You can, yeah. So try the figure 4 one for me. Just get down there and kick that leg out. So there you go, figure 4 stretch, and put this one back. And you're just going to lean into that leg a little bit. Stay nice and tall. Good.
Careful, Andy, you might pick it back up.
Ooh. Yes, I can definitely feel that. So this is working on
the outside of the hip. Yeah, the outside of the lead hip. To flip them over, do it the other way, we'd work the other hip. And now get up into the other position I talked about. And this is another great one for the hip. Yeah, there you go. So now you're going to push that forward, and now tuck your pelvis underneath, and you'll really feel a stretch down the front side of that hip there as well. And we would do that both sides. So try the other way, because that's the other hip we're really working on with you. I'm really trying to open up that hip right there, and especially that hip flexor. Now tuck the pelvis underneath, and that gives you that extra stretch.
You can feel that all down the front now as well.
Yeah. So again, the hips are, you can come back up from there, Andy. So again, the hips are such an important mechanism in the golf swing, as you guys have seen. And the reason for it is, you know, I always talk about this is the connection of power between this and this. If you want to think about it in golf swing terms, I love the power cord analogy. So imagine I've got an extension cord or a power cord right here, and I've got one right here. And at address, what we're going to do is I'm going to hinge from the hips, and I'm going to plug them in. Now I've got my power plugged in. My core's activated, my glutes are activated, I feel athletic. During my golf swing, I want to make sure that those are plugged in. If I reverse my hip, guess what? I've unplugged the power cord, right? If I do any kind of driving of the legs towards the ball, I unplug the power cord. So for the whole golf swing, I want to make sure that that power cord is always plugged in. If those two are always plugged in, then my legs are going to be active, my chest is going to stay in posture, and I'm going to hit that golf ball better.
So you've got a greater chance then of hitting that ball further. I like the analogy there. Great way of thinking about it.
Yeah,
absolutely. Just on the reps there, Dave. How many reps and how long for reps on the stalk turns?
Yeah, I mean, you know, again, I think it's different with everybody because you're going to have a different situation. I usually like to do 3 sets of 5 to start with in each of these. So they can be, you know, if I'm standing there doing 3 sets of 5, it's just 5 good, smooth motions under control 5 times. Stop and take a little rest, maybe do the other side, and so on. In terms of the stretches, you're going to know what's best for you. Again, you don't want to bounce into stretches. Whenever you're doing any kind of a static stretch where you're holding, make sure you're breathing properly. And that's not chest breathing, that's stomach breathing. So to know how to breathe properly, you kind of have to take a yoga lesson. But if I put my hand on my chest and my hand on my stomach and I fill up with air, I want this to get higher, okay? And then when I breathe out, I want this to get lower. I don't want this. Chest breathing is this type of breathing. That's a bad form of breathing. That can actually cause the shoulders to get rounded. It can cause the ribs to get contracted, and it can make it difficult to turn in the golf swing. So breathing is a big aspect as well.
Yeah, definitely.
Yep.
Okay, that takes care of the physical side. Now we've got to go and actually see if we can fix the golf swing and just gel these two things.
Not a lot to do with you. You got a good swing, so I think we can show you a few things there.
Okay, let's get on the range. Let's get out there.
Okay, Dave, so we've got Andy back on the practice tee now, so let's just go through the recommendations that you'd have for his golf swing.
Yeah, so you know, we learned in the gym that you have a little difficulty turning into this hip. You know, we noticed that your glute wasn't firing quite as well as it should be. I'd want to bring that glute back. I'd want to give you some exercises that get me rotating and turning into this hip. What you do instead is on the backswing, you have a little bit of reverse of the hip, not a lot, okay? And you get into your lead side a bit early. So what that does is if I get in there too early and I don't have good hip mobility, then what happens is it makes it difficult to clear. So my knee will start to kick in and I'll start to back up out of the shot like this, right? So it's not bad that you get on your lead side early. That's okay with something like an iron, because obviously with an iron, I want to get on this side, I want to lean that shaft forward and really compress the ball. It can hurt a little bit more when I get to the driver, because when the driver, I'm really trying to hit a little bit more up on the ball. So if I get into my lead leg early, what usually happens is you'll start to back out of it. The club can drop somewhat behind us. That can where we can bring in that block that we talked about and a little bit of the hook, right? So again, the issue is this, is that what I'm really looking for is, I know this hip is a bit of a problem. We're going to give you the things I want you to do. I don't know if you can do them yet because the hip is not very mobile and the glute's not firing yet. But I'm going to tell you what you should do anyway, right? We can talk about how we would teach around that if we avoided it, because there are a couple things we could do. In fact, if we were to do nothing, what I might do is just fan your front foot. Because by just fanning your front foot, it opens up that hip anyway, and now it might allow me to straighten that leg instead of kick my knee in, and you might be okay. So that's something we could try. Long term, that's not the ultimate solution because we could cause potentially injury because we're avoiding the issue. So ideally, I'd want to address the issue and then go from there. When I'm working with an elite level player like a tour player, I'm always conscious of the amount of work they're going to do and could it cause injury if I don't address the problem. With the average player, a lot of times we can just teach around it. They're not playing that much golf. But hey, if you can fix it, why not? It's not that hard to do. Okay,
sounds good.
So this is the issue. So what we're going to do is we're going to use something like this right here. And what I'd like to see is if I put this in the ground right here, just like this, what happens is as you go to the top of your backswing, you turn a little bit towards this gap closes. Now in transition, you get over here very quickly, which is good. The problem is this, is you don't have the ability to clear this hip and lift it up out of the way. This is what someone like Rory McIlroy does. Look how, what Rory does is he drives into the side like you do, but what he's very good at is the legs straighten and he has long legs and a short torso, what I call short torso down, which gives him this ability to really power through the golf ball. In your case, because the hip isn't working that well, what you do is you get over here, but you don't have the ability to straighten and turn because this is tight. So what you do, you kick your knee in a little bit, you use this leg a little bit, and now we're kind of backing away from it, right? So we really want to get into that side. So that's what we're going to work on a little bit. I'm going to have you try a couple things. We're going to see how those progress, and then we'll see where we go from there.
All right, sounds good.
Okay. All right.
Okay, Dave, let's get into this. Let's see what we can do with this.
Okay, so let's get you in your setup position with the iron here. Okay, perfect. So again, one of the things we can do, knowing that he has a little bit of a tight hip, is I can fan this front foot out a little bit. So if I fan that front foot out a little bit, I've artificially given him the ability to turn into that hip a bit better. So I'm going to do that anyway. So you can call that a teaching around a limitation, but I would add that anyway, especially at this point, because to tell you the truth, I'm not sure whether I can get your hip open in the time we've had here today. So I would fan that out. So the other thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to put this in the ground right here. I'm just going to put it on the outside of this foot and just put it straight down. So right about there should be good. There you go. So again, in your setup position, go to the top of your backswing. So
kind of like the line you drew on the analysis,
exactly, just like the line we drew on the analysis. So again, he's loaded into this hip quite nicely here. Now what I want him to do is I want you to bump over and try and close this gap. Now once you feel the weight over this leg right here, what we need is I need this to straighten. So start straightening that leg. There you go. So look how much clearer we are here from face on than we were. We were very much this way where we were kind of drifting through, the knee was breaking down. That would be the ultimate position. The fact that you can do that while I'm standing here tells me that I think we can get this done.
Okay.
Okay. Now, the average person at home, this might be more difficult for you to do. We've got a seasoned professional and a good athlete here. So in his case, it's quite quick for him to make the changes. For a lot of people, it can be quite difficult.
Yep.
So really what you need is you need a good idea of what you're going to do. It's very important you have a clear picture in your mind of what needs to be done. Now what I'm going to ask Andy is a couple things. I'm going to ask him what it feels like. So take your setup position for me. So I want you to go to the top of your backswing and load into that hip. Good. What does that feel like to you?
It feels like it's a sway.
Okay, so it feels like it's a sway to him. Doesn't look like it's a sway to us, right?
Looks good
pretty
to us.
loaded,
Loaded.
okay? So that's a good feeling. Now I want you to get over here for me. Now I want you to straighten that. What does that feel like?
Feels like I'm really clearing the hips out of the way there, yeah.
Okay, so now what I want you to do is I want to actually have him hit a golf swing where he feels like he's swaying and then he feels like he's clearing the heck out of his hips, okay? Because those are the two feelings he gave me. Regardless of what I think or what I think the feel should be, very important we put it in your words because what you feel and what I feel could be totally different. So I'm actually going to take this away. I'm going to have you hit a shot now and then we'll talk about some of the differences with a driver. So here we go. We're going to make one swing where you feel like you're swaying and you're going to get as open as you can through impact. Well, that was pretty good.
That
was dead straight right there. That was pretty nice. So again, these are little tiny things and we made some slight adjustments. In terms of drills, if I'm trying to get somebody to open to this hip, a couple things that we can do. We can always drop the foot back. I could have you just put the foot up behind this like here and hit a few shots where you just feel like you're rotating around this hip. Now that's going to tax the hip. It's going to put a bit of strain and stress on it. And some of you aren't going to have the mobility or the stability to do that. But that is a good drill to do with some slow movement swings to just get you used to rotating and turning around that hip. And in his case, I need him to get him feeling that, so that is something I might have.
Kind of makes him harder to do it, doesn't it? So he's got to battle against it.
It does. Now, this is where things get a little more complicated as we go to the longer club. So when we go to a driver, I think what I want you guys to realize at home is these are two different beasts, an iron and a driver. And so many people get this wrong, guys. And that is, the driver is very much like a specialty club. It's no different than hitting a bunker shot. So in the bunker, I'm not even hitting the ball, I'm hitting the sand. I'm gonna dig my feet in, I might splay my feet open, I'm gonna open the face, I might weaken my top hand grip, I'm gonna rotate it. It's a specialty shot. You learn how to hit that specific shot. But hopefully, you're not gonna hit it more than once around or a couple times around if you're a good iron player. But the bottom line is a driver is very much a specialty club. If you really think about it, we have 18 holes in golf. On very rare situations, will you ever hit more than 8 drivers or 10 drivers around? You got 4 par 3s on most golf courses, and then you've got a couple short par 4s where you really don't need a driver. You can just go ahead and use a hybrid or a 3-wood off the tee. So in many cases, we're probably only going to hit the big stick maybe 8 or 10 times around. And I need you guys at home to realize that this is a specialty club. And with a specialty club, the ball's on a tee. It requires a different swing and different dynamics. With a ball on the tee, I have to hit more up on the golf ball. I'm not going to be on top of this leg hitting the ball because that would cause an angle of attack that's too much down and a shaft that's leaning too far forward. The flight of the golf ball will be too low as a result, right?
No good for a driver.
And we won't maximize that distance. So for me, very important that we change a few things with your setup. So let's get you in your normal position here. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to fan that front foot again. Okay. Now, this is where we're going to talk a little bit about a feeling difference. What I want to do with the driver is I want to feel like I'm behind the golf ball a little bit. I'm going to put about 60% of my weight into this leg, and I'm going to put 40 on this one. So at address, I'm going to feel a little bit more. 55, 60 is about what I want. Now, as you turn, I want you to think around turning around this pocket. So you're going to turn around the pocket. So go to the top of your backswing. Beautiful. So do you feel that sway again or that load?
It definitely feels like a
sway. So you feel some pressure here.
Yeah.
Yeah, so now he's loaded into that leg.
All the weight, the majority of the weight is in that right side.
Exactly, so you bring up an important point because on our force and pressure plates here at TPI, the best drivers in the world, about 80% of their weight are on that back leg at the top of their backswing. Okay, so if 80% of my weight is loaded into this leg on the backswing, now I'm in a position where I can explode, I can push, and it's this movement, this shift of weight and rotation that really generates that speed. And that's why in the gym we talked around the pelvis.
Absolutely.
That separation of the pelvis, very important.
Yeah.
So again, get in your normal setup position for me. We're going to load into that leg, and you're going to coil around that leg. And now, rather than try and get him over to this leg, because I know he can do that, he's so good at doing it with the iron, what I'm actually going to try and get him to do is feel a little bit wider with this club. So with the driver, there you go. I'm going to have him straighten this arm quicker and feel like the entire right side of the body here is going to launch into the back of that golf ball, okay? Don't worry so much about shifting weight, in other words. He's going to do that. I know he's going to do that because he's a good player.
This is really important that people who do this, I mean, Andy's obviously a skilled golfer.
Yes, he is.
So we want to make sure that people back home, if they have a little bit of the early release, for instance, we're almost asking him to early release.
Yes, we are.
Andy, if anything, has got too much of too late a release.
He does. So, you know, in the case of the driver, you know, it's hard to say, hey, well, how much is too much?
Yep.
But most good players, because their lower body dynamics are so good, they create this load on the shaft. And they actually, the better player tends to hold this angle almost too long. And if I hold it too long as I'm turning, what happens is my arms start to work away from my body, the club drops more on the plane, and I hit a block or a hook, which is what he's struggling with right now. So for him, I need to feel a little bit more like the iron in that I need to get my handle of my club closer and the club head more out coming down so I can shallow out his path and get him to hit more up on the golf ball. And that's really what I want.
So we're in instance, we're feeding what he needs.
We are. We're feeding what he needs. Now, the average player at World, you're right, we've got to watch they don't throw the club or early release it. There you go. Beautiful. Beautiful. And I think you're going to move fine in that leg. Still fan the foot open. So we got 60% or 55 there. Keep it there at the top of your backswing, and then just stay nice and wide coming down and let it go. Damn. Either I'm really good or he's really good.
Fixed in 2 shots.
I'm going to say you.
That was pretty,
I'm going to say you, Dave.
That was pretty good. So again, understanding how his body works and how it relates to his golf swing is so important, because I could go down the track of changing a lot of things, but once I know how his body works, I know what he's going to fight. So now I'm kind of a little bit working around it because I don't have a lot of time with him, but I'm also giving him the exercises and the drills that if he does it, it'll be natural to him and he can get it quick. But once you understand how your body works and what your issues are, it's really not that hard to make a change, and you should be able to make it like that.
Okay, so that rounds up our series of videos here at TPI, Dave. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Dave.
Really looked after us there.
Great to have you.
And you know what, guys? I hope you enjoyed that. I mean, we've got a very good insight there into what the guys do here at TPI, but also what Andy's left hip does.
That's right. That's right.
Okay, so don't forget to check out mytpi.com. Obviously, keep watching the Take Charge Tour videos that we're producing. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you soon on Me and My Golf TV.